All right, welcome back to another Photoshop tutorial. I am your teacher, Mr. Brown, and today we're going to be editing this really great photo of this Corvette. And we're going to have a lot of fun doing it, hopefully, and learn a few things, practice a few more things. So what we want to do is, first, we want to edit the photo a little bit, clean up some of the colors and some of the images. And so how we're going to do this, we're going to start off, we're going to remove this name down here. I'm going to zoom in here, click, Command plus, Control plus. We're going to zoom in, and what we're going to do is we're going to remove this name first. So I'm going to get right in here so I can see it really well. And I am just going to use the spot healing tool over here on the left, spot healing tool. And I'm going to make my cursor just a little bit bigger, and I'm going to try to just wipe over it. Sometimes this works really great, sometimes it doesn't. Let's see. And that's okay, it's not terrible. I'm going to come back and use my clone stamp tool, and we're going to just clean this up a little bit, line it up here. There we go. And we're just going to paint over. Oops, looks like my opacity is turned too far down. So I'm going to Command Z that. We're going to try it one more time. I'm going to sample. And now we're just going to come back here and try to clean it up. And, well, that almost got it. Let's try it one more time. Here we go. I'm having to basically just click release a little bit because, you know, it'll keep copying. The next thing we want to do is this image has a little bit of, I don't know, I guess it's bug guts. I guess they're driving like a zillion miles an hour. So let's clean up some of these marks on the body, make it look a little bit nicer. You need to remember, make your cursor as small as you can, but just big enough to cover the blemish. And if you can keep from dragging it and painting, essentially, just want to click, that helps. So I'm going to clean up all these little marks. There's a lot of little marks, but if we're going to do something like for a magazine, we want to go for as nice as we can. Of course, right here we've got kind of a long mark, so I'm just going to shrink my cursor and click it. Get that as clean as we can. I'm going to press my space key, click and hold, and just kind of zoom over here to the front. We've got some issues up front, so I'm going to clean up all these bug guts. Click, click, click. Make sure it looks pretty okay. I'm going to say that's all right. Let's keep going. So I'm going to zoom back out. We're going to take a look at the whole image. And what we want to do now is add some adjustment layers. And we haven't worked with a lot of adjustment layers yet, but today we're going to. So I'm going to go ahead and click on New Filler Adjustment Layer. And I'm going to come up here and go to Curves. The Curves layer is pretty powerful, and I just kind of want you guys to do what I do. You can play around with it if you like, but we're going to give this what's called a traditional film curve or an S curve. And so this is your curves. This represents your darkest pixels, and this represents your lightest pixels. So things that are like down here, that's these pixels here. Things that are up here, definitely going to be these pixels here. So if I move the curves line, it's going to affect how these pixels, if they're brighter or darker. So I'm going to just drag, I'm going to click about the first grid line and drag it down. I'm going to click at the very bottom and make sure you're on the very bottom. I'm actually going to push it up a little bit. And then I'm going to go back to the middle, and I'm going to bring the middle back up. And I'm going to bring the highlights up. And if we turn that off and on, you can see how it really made the image like pop a whole lot more pop there. And that's really, you know, that's really what we wanted, was just that beautiful pop. All right, so next, we got our curves done. Now we're going to get even crazier. I'm going to come here and I'm going to select the car. So I'm going to come up to Object Selection Tool. It's the fourth one down. And you may have the Quick Select tool. If you click and hold on the tool, this little menu pops up and you can change which tool you want. Or you can just hit the W key. But I'm going to try the Object Select tool, and I'm going to try to select the car. And the reason why is I want to cut the car out. and put it onto a new layer. So I'm just going to select over the car, and I'm going to let go. And let's just see what it does. Mine's thinking about it. Mine is a very old iMac, but it still works pretty well, so I keep using it. But it's going to take a second to think. Oh, beautiful. It did a pretty decent job. We got a little bit of goofiness here, and it didn't get this little fin thing here, and you can see it kind of messed up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down and switch to my quick select tool, and I'm going to hold down the Option or Alt key, and when I do that, it turns my cursor to a minus, and I'm just going to come over here and subtract. Now, my computer does weird things. Just ignore that. Okay, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to subtract this. Good. It's glitchy. Uh-oh. That's okay. We're going to reselect it. Mine's super glitchy since the latest update, but it's also because my iMac is very old. So, I think this is going to work. So now what we're going to do is we're going to hit Command C or Control C if you're on a PC. And I'm going to create a new layer. This little plus sign way down here at the bottom, or you can hit Command Shift N. So I'm going to click the Create a New Layer. And I'm going to hit Command V to paste this layer. And if we turn the background off, you can see it's just the car. And that's pretty much what we wanted. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to change the color of the car. So I'm going to come and with my car layer selected, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and change the name of this so I don't forget. I'm just going to type car. And with the car layer selected, I'm going to come here and click at the adjustment layer at the bottom, and I'm going to do a hue saturation. Very first thing we want to do is, by default, when you create an adjustment layer, it applies it to every layer underneath. But what we want to do is apply it just to the layer below. So if I leave it like this, I can I can move this around. Everything gets crazy. But if I click this little button right here, it's like a little square and an arrow coming off to the left. If I click that, it only applies it to the image right below it. And that's what we want. So you can see that we can change the color to whatever we want it to be. Man, I really like this red. That's sharp. Ooh, it's gorgeous looking. We might leave it at red, but let's see what other colors we've got. Oh, we can go to a blue. Oh man, yeah, I think we're gonna go with the red. I think I like the red. You can pick whatever color you like. You just need to change the color. You can also change the saturation. Like this red is a little bit too much. So I'm going to roll the saturation down just a little. You can change the lightness or darkness. If you want to darken it, you can darken it. You just want to go for what looks realistic. So I'm going to try to get this to where it's a little bit more realistic. I think that's going to work for us. You can see that this is the difference. And it doesn't affect the black and it doesn't affect the silver. It's because those aren't actually colors, they're just luminosities. So that works out really great for us, because if not, you'd have to apply a layer mask and make some adjustments here. So that looks pretty great. So we've got our car, we've got our background, we've got our curves layer. So we started with this image, we added our curves, looking good, then we added our hue saturation, and we've got that. And the next thing we want to do, we need to replace the sky. It's an okay sky, but it's not the best sky. And I've got another image. You guys should have downloaded 2 different images here. And I'm going to just drag the image in and drop it. And it should pop up. There we go. In Photoshop, anytime you drop an image, you get this little X. And that means that the photo is in a state of ready to be edited state. So we're just going to move it around. We're going to try to make it bigger. Well, now I have messed up because I forgot to constrain the pixel ratio. So here we go. We're back to where we were. And now that's better. Very good. Okay. We're going to get it the size of the canvas. I'm going to hit enter. And when I hit enter, you have to hit enter. There's a little check mark up here usually. and then it goes away, and that's what you want. Now we've dropped this under our curves layer, so I'm going to pull it back up on top, and we may move that around in a minute, but you can see that now that it's above the curves layer, it's not being affected. If I move it back down, it is being affected. So that's something to think about when you're doing your edits. What we want to do is pull it all the way down underneath the background, except I can't pull it below the background because the background is locked. So I'm going to single click on my lock. There we go. And I'm going to drag it and I'm going to drop it underneath. Haha, ta-da. All right, so the next thing you're going to do, we really want to replace this sky. And so we're going to come in here, and actually there's a new sky replace tool, but I don't see it. I haven't updated to the new version that just came out. Yeah, there's no sky replace yet. I'll have to update that later. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back to our layer 0. I'm going to turn off the rest of these layers so that I can see. And we need to select the sky. And we can... Sometimes you can play around with the blending modes and get what you want. There's a lot of different options. So don't be afraid to play around with the blending modes, because you might just say, oh, wow, if the pixels are totally white, then it 100% might just like this. Oh, it's so close. That almost gets us to where we need to be. Almost, but not quite. It's kind of a mess. And so none of these actually work. But every great once in a while, you'll have an image that's just perfect and it works just fine. So that's not going to work. So what we have to do is select the sky. So we're going to just drag our quick select tool. I'm up here. I went to quick select, which is W. And you can see I've got some screen issues because my computer's kind of dying on me. But I want to hit my minus, and I'm going to subtract the top of the car. There we go. And I've got some other issues up here because it's not totally bringing in all of the trees. And if I just go like this, it's not going to work terribly well. So we need to come up to the top. We're going to hit Enhance Edge. And then we're going to go to Selection. And we're going to modify the border just a little bit. And we're going to expand the border. Or actually, I don't know. Actually, I'm kind of on the fence of how I want to do this. This can kind of go either way. It can kind of become a mess. So let's do a different technique. I'm going to hit Command D. We need to get these trees in here. So I'm going to go to Select, and I'm going to go to Color Range. Color Range. So select Color Range. And I'm going to select this empty space. And it gives us a preview here. And I'm going to bring this down to where hopefully all we can see is the sky. And that's actually looking pretty good. So if you bring it down really low, you can see that it really just cuts everything out. But we want to just see the sky. So I'm going to move my fuzziness around. Here it looks like it's about 40, maybe 50 is pretty good. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit OK. So click. And what that's going to do is it's going to select all of the areas that I talked about. It's gotten us a lot closer where we need to be around the trees. The only bad thing is it has selected some areas on our car. But I'm not going to worry about that because we copied the car and we have a whole other layer that has the car that is perfectly preserved. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the delete key. And bam, that doesn't look bad. I'm going to hit Command D to deselect. And I'm going to turn my other car back on. And we've got some issues. Okay, so we've got some issues over here we need to fix. We do need to take this area out of this windshield. So, let's see what we've got. Yeah, that's definitely bad, and that's not any better. So I'm going to need to just erase this whole windshield on this layer. So I'm going to come over here with my erase tool, and I'm just going to wipe this windshield out. So goodbye, windshield. you're out of here like last year. And there we go, gone. And then I'm going to come back to my car layer, and I'm just going to select the windshield with my quick select tool, just the bright spots, and it should, oh, my computer got confused. It should, I'm going to have to expand it a little bit. Too much. I'm going to have to shrink it, hold down my Option key or Alt key on a PC, and we can shrink it down. And I'm going to come up here and shrink it some more. I don't want it to include the top or the rearview mirror or the pillar over here. So we're kind of getting there. Sometimes this is terribly, terribly tedious, and this is definitely one of those times. And we're going to let it just, it's thinking. Oops, I had the wrong button down. If you guys want to help me out, you can totally buy me a new iMac for Christmas. That would be great. If y'all just want to, if you just all took up some money, like $10 a piece, that would get me really close. So this is where I need to be. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete it. See what this looks like. It looks terrible, doesn't it? Of course, you can only see the little bitty square. So I'm going to hit Command Z to undo that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer. So I'm going to hit Command C. I'm going to create a new layer. And I'm going to hit Command V to paste. And hopefully, I can't actually see because it created it as an underlayer. That's not good. So I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to go back. Oh, went too far back. So I'm going to click on my layer below, and I'm going to create a new layer just by clicking it. And now I'm going to come back, hit Command C, hit Command V, and that should get me where I need to be. So I'm going to turn, nope, I did it again, shoot. I'm going to maybe drop this underneath. There's a problem when you have the select only the layer below it, and then you try to add something to it, it becomes super problematic. Okay, so now that it looks like that might have worked. That's our, yes, we're good. And so what I'm going to do with this layer, and I'm going to change the name of this to windshield. I'm going to change the opacity down just a little bit so that it kind of looks realistic. And then I'm going to come back up to my car layer, and I should have just deleted this before, but I didn't. I'm going to go ahead and reselect it and fix my little goof ups. Oh, that's actually not bad. I'm going to just leave it like that. I'm going to hit delete. Before I hit delete, make sure I'm on the right layer, and then I'm going to hit delete. And I'm going to hit Command D. And you need to do a better job than what I did, because this does not look the best. It looks a little bit kind of goofy. I'm going to come here and turn the opacity up a little bit more. I should have feathered this edge a smidgen. It makes it look a little bit rough. So be a little bit more careful down here than I was. I'm going to try to fix it by doing my eraser and changing the opacity down really, really low. And then I'm going to shrink my brush. And I'm also going to click and change my hardness like to maybe 19%. And then I'm just going to try to erase. And that does not look like it is doing what I wanted it to do. No, not at all. That looks actually worse. Worse. Oh man, that's just terrible. Yeah, that's gonna be tough. I messed it up. Not gonna lie, don't want to go back and redo it. So we're just gonna kind of leave it. It's not the most professional thing to do, but maybe if I softened this edge just a little bit, maybe. So we're just gonna go over it a few times, see what that looks like. No, it actually looks even worse. So yeah, it looks like I really messed that up. So I'm just gonna leave it, and we're just gonna keep going for it. Okay, I'm going to turn my opacity back up a little bit, and then we're going to turn this layer back on. So for today's assignment, this is okay. When your teacher messes up, hey, you just kind of have to go with it. And we're going to need to clean up this area. Oh, those trees look hideous. Hideous. So I'm going to come up here. Make sure you're on your background layer, which is right here. I'm going to go ahead and click that and change it to I'm just going to call it trees. That way I remember which layer is which. And we're going to need to try to erase some of this off, which is not going to be easy. I'm going to try first with my eraser tool, turn my opacity way down, and I'm going to try to make this a little bit bigger. My feather is way up. Let's just see what this kind of looks like. It's not bad, so we may just do that. Just kind of have to make sure you really get along the edges. So normally what we've got here is we have a JPEG, and JPEGs are compressed images. Normally what I work in is a RAW file, and they're a little bit easier to manipulate. So I'm just clicking a lot. I've got my opacity down to 25%. I've got my hardness at 19% and my size at 150%, and I'm just clicking a lot. And so clicking kind of allows you to, if you keep clicking in the same spot, it'll go away. If you click just once, it only erases it a little bit. But yeah, we're gonna just kind of work our way around and clean up this sky. And it doesn't affect the tree as much. It's already kind of blurred, so it's all right. But we're gonna just kind of take this out. Now, there is something that does stand out. The car is perfectly sharp, and then you have this bokeh that just, the trees, you can see they just kind of melt away. So what we're going to do, and I want you guys to finish doing this, but for the sake of time, you can see what I'm doing. I don't need to finish. You guys can kind of make it happen. So I'm just going to work my way around and kind of get that out of there. And just, here we go. We're just making it happen. You're going to need to come down and do these areas. Just lots of little clicking in between. Just click, 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 click. And that the brightness just kind of goes away, and you can kind of edit the photo as need be. So we've got the same issue over here. It kind of melts right here where the sun is. So, oops, I need to change my brush size. And then we're just going to just kind of erase the top. And you can just kind of do this long stroke kind of thing. And just kind of get the top. So the trees, when it starts to melt over here, you don't even have to worry about it as much. But where it's in this corner and it's nice and bright and red, you do want to totally erase it so that it doesn't stand out. Mainly when you're editing a photo, you want to look for the things that just look like it's fake, and then you want to fix that. If it doesn't look that bad, don't stress about it. You can just kind of leave it. It's not going to work. It's not going to mess things up terribly if you just leave it. Like these areas over here, you can see where I did a bad job. So please fix yours up better than I'm fixing mine. All right, and back to what I was saying is you can see that the car is very sharp. The background is blurry, but the sky is then very, very sharp. So we need to blur the sky to match the background. There's no way in an image you could have a sharp car, a super blurry background, and then a perfectly sharp sky. That doesn't happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on our background layer. We're going to come up to filter, and we're going to go to blur, and then we're going to go to Gaussian blur. We're going to click it, and we're going to blur the image to blur this to match our trees. They should be equal blurriness. And I'm going to zoom out. See, it's too much. It's way too much. So I'm going to bring it back. And you just kind of have to play around with it to get it to look right. That's not bad. You just have to play around with it and get it to where you need it to go. Maybe a little bit less. Maybe 8 pixels. 8 pixels may be the magic number. So I'm going to hit OK. And you can tell that's brought out some definite noticeability with my bad erasing over here. So this is why you need to make sure yours looks really great. If I were going to really get in here, I would come up on my car layer, and you guys need to do this. Get in here on this car layer and erase this white line. Clean this up so that it is not as noticeable. You've got a definite white line right there. It's not so bad everywhere else, but right here we have a definite issue. So clean that up because it really makes it stand out. When you're done, go to File, Save As, save it as a JPEG, and submit it on Google Classroom. For those of you that may be watching and trying to do this on Photopea, I'm going to release a Photopea version of this a little bit later. Hopefully, maybe it will work. But if not, we tried. All right, guys, that's it for today. Thanks for checking this out. Make sure you pay attention to those details. Even though mine's a little bit sloppy, I'm going to be grading yours on looking professional. So, yeah. We will see you guys later. Ask questions, send me emails, william.brown@terrellisd.org. Thanks, and have a great